Let's come to some of the international issues. It's been, like I said, just barely 3 weeks since Trump came to office. He signed more than 250, 300 executive orders, including the one on tariffs that's coming today. The most significant foreign policy phone call, I guess, happened yesterday when he spoke to both President Putin for the first time, I think, in many, many years, and also to President Zelensky. And Mr. Trump is convinced that this is the beginning of the all-elusive peace in Ukraine, this all-elusive ceasefire that he says Ukraine and Russia should have been working towards yesterday.
I think what happened yesterday, number one, was quite amazing. And number two, I think it plays to India's advantage in a significant way. And let me tell you what I think happened. I think President Trump, and especially the comments of Secretary of Defense Hegseth yesterday, made it clear that the United States has gone a long way towards accepting the main two conditions that the Russians demand to settle this war. I'm actually very surprised that this happened. Hegseth said that, and Trump said, that Ukraine would not be in NATO. And moreover, Hegseth made it clear that we're not going to give Ukraine security guarantees. This means that it is possible to get a genuinely neutral Ukraine, which is the first demand that Putin has made. Mm-hmm. The second demand is that the West and Ukraine accept the fact that Russia has annexed Crimea and it has annexed those four easternmost oblasts in Ukraine. And Hegseth basically said yesterday that we're going to do that. He didn't specifically say what territory the Russians could keep from an American perspective, but he implied that the Russians can keep what they've already conquered and maybe a bit more. And these are the two major demands that Putin has made of the West and of Ukraine. And it's not surprising that the Russians were ecstatic about what happened yesterday. The Europeans and the Ukrainians are profoundly upset, and many people in the United States are profoundly upset about what Trump is doing. Trump has fundamentally reversed, or appears to be fundamentally reversing, the Biden administration's foreign policy. Now, why is this good news for India? The Biden administration was very upset with India for not cracking down on the Russians, for not having an antagonistic relationship with Russia because of Ukraine. Well, if Trump flips the policy and Trump wants to work with the Russians and have good relations with Russia and end the war in Ukraine, largely on Russia's terms, that means that the Trump administration has no incentive to put pressure on India over Ukraine. And if anything, it has an incentive to work with India to get India to back it up as it moves towards a settlement with Russia over the Ukraine issue. So I think this is good news for India. And in my view, it's good news for Ukraine.
I'll come to the India part in just 1 second. Why would the Ukrainians accept such a deal? They have to give up about anywhere between a fourth and a fifth of the territory that they had before this war began. There are no guarantees, security guarantees. There is no NATO membership. Why would they agree to this?
It's not clear they will agree to it, right? I mean, and we also have to see what happens with the Europeans. There are three players here. The Europeans, the Ukrainians, and the Americans. Now, the Americans are the principal driving force, but as you're saying, we have to get the Ukrainians on board. And if they don't accept this deal, that could be a real problem. And I don't know how Trump will finesse that. But there's no question that Trump is moving in a fundamentally different direction than the Biden administration was moving in. And really what's going on here is that the Trump administration is facing up to the fact that the Russians are going to win this war. The Ukrainian military is falling apart on the battlefield. It's suffering serious defeats, is in real trouble. And what Trump and his lieutenants are saying is that it's time to shut this one down. There's no way we can shift the balance of power and rescue Ukraine. And let's cut a deal that's in America's interest and is in Ukraine's interest. Now, whether that can be done remains to be seen.
So I want to come to the part where you said this might be good news for India, and I'm also curious to know your thoughts on, Prime Minister Modi enjoys good relations with both President Putin of Russia and President Zelensky of Ukraine. He's, in fact, one of the few world leaders who's visited both countries since this war began. Do you think President Trump might, weigh in on him, perhaps lean on his sort of counsel, if not mediation, to try and find a middle ground between Russia and Ukraine?
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. This is why I was saying that I think from India's point of view, this is good news, because the Trump administration will want to work with India. It will see India as an ally on this issue. And if Modi has good relations with Zelensky and with Putin, and he can talk to both of them and do something to help cajole the Ukrainians into accepting the peace settlement that the Americans want, that would be all for the good from America's point of view. I don't know that in the end Modi would be successful, or anybody would be successful at convincing the Ukrainians to go along with this deal. Excuse me, I think it's very hard to imagine Ukraine accepting the deal, but who knows?
All right. I'll come to the final part of this conversation, and I want to talk about Gaza, because Trump has been saying quite a few, really outrageous things about Gaza, about making it into the Riviera of the Middle East. Palestinians have no right to return. Egypt and Jordan should take more Palestinians, so on and so forth. If you can sort of separate all the sound and fury of the stuff that he's been saying from if there is a method in the madness to what he's trying to achieve. Ultimately, he wants to end that war too, but in terms which seem quite bizarre, at least on the face of it.
Yeah, I think your word outrageous is the right word to use to describe what Trump is proposing. I think it's morally reprehensible to talk about ethnically cleansing the Palestinians from Gaza. And furthermore, from a practical point of view, I don't see how that's possible. The Israelis have just spent 15 to 16 months pounding the Palestinians in Gaza for purposes of trying to drive them out, and they failed. The Palestinians are still there. Hamas is still there. So how is the United States going to get them out? And then who's going to take them?
Yeah.
This makes no sense at all. And to take it a step further, you want to remember that the ceasefire between the Palestinians and the Israelis came into effect on January 19th, the day before President Trump moved into the White House. He moved in on January 20th. And President Trump basically told the Israelis he wanted that ceasefire before he moved into the White House. So President Trump played an important role in making the ceasefire happen. And that looked like a good deal to almost everybody. Everybody who's, except maybe Benjamin Netanyahu and people on his right, were happy about a ceasefire. Then Trump starts talking about turning Gaza into the Riviera in the Middle East. And if anything, that undermines the ceasefire, which he had gotten credit for helping put into place. So in a very important way, it didn't make sense. So I can't give you a good explanation for what he's thinking here. I mean, what he did was he put forth an outrageous and impractical idea that, if anything, undermined the policy that he appeared to be pushing as he moved into the White House.
All right. And I want to get one final question in. I want to know your thoughts on this whole relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. The Democrats are saying, Elon is the real president. The Time magazine had a cover photograph of Elon Musk sitting behind the Resolute desk. Again, help our viewers try and make sense of this. Is Trump using Musk as some kind of a wrecking ball to shake up the federal government and the bureaucracy? And when do you think this honeymoon is going to end? Because it looks like, both men have pretty big egos, so it has to end at some point.
Yeah, there's no question that Trump has a huge ego. And when they put Elon Musk, on a magazine cover and he's portrayed as the real president, you would think that this would drive Donald Trump crazy. Apparently, it's not done that. I think that Trump understands that if he's going to do a wrecking ball operation, both on the foreign policy front and on the domestic policy front, he can't do it all by himself. And he has to delegate responsibility. And Elon Musk is the ideal person to turn to help do the wrecking on the domestic front. And Musk, I think it's fair to say, is acting as a wrecking ball, and he doesn't care what anybody says about him. So from Trump's point of view, he is, an ideal person to help him. And I think maybe Trump feels that he is the president. Remember, he has 4 more years in front of him. The guy hasn't even been in power for 1 month. So Elon Musk over the next 4 years is not going to seriously undermine Trump's position as the leader of the United States. So I think what's happened here is that they've come to terms.
All right, Professor John Mearsheimer, as always, a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your time and your valuable insights. Thank you.